All right, good day, everybody. This is Emar Soper. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting on April 15th, 2021. Hope all of you are well out there. It's actually tax day. I realized that while I'm saying it. Hopefully, all of you filled your taxes or did what you had to do, and everything's going on with that. But it is interesting because it is the middle of the spring. We're heading close to the summer. So, similar to other portions of the year, including the early fall. We have transition with some seasons in the sports world concluding or heading towards the postseason. Some are just starting. And we're going to touch on a lot of those throughout the show as we move it along. On today's broadcast, we will recap Georgia Tech's win over Lipscomb in the volleyball team in the NCAA tournament. Have a full breakdown of that contest. The Georgia Tech and Georgia State football teams are heading towards conclusion of their spring practices. I have some quotes and some commentary on that. We'll transition to the original free kick. Atlanta United continues to work through the early portion of their season. They had the CONCACAF Champions League matches, and now to prepare for the MLS opener on April 17th against Orlando City. And then we'll transition to the miscellaneous department. We had a no-hitter in baseball, a milestone that may not be reached again in Major League Baseball as well. A standout defensive player has signed with a Super Bowl contender. A pro prospect had a second pro day in the NFL. And the Sixers and the Nets sort of had a contest yesterday, and when I say sorta, it'll make sense when we get to the recap. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net. On the site, you will see our previous Sports Inquirer shows. And we also have our WrestleMania recap. We did that with our Verbal Submission podcast. So if you are into professional wrestling, give that a listen. I do a full breakdown of all festivities with WWE from WrestleMania to NXT. And it was enjoyable doing that show and breaking everything down. So make sure you give that a listen as you check the site out. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Sports Inquirer, all one word. Just do a search on there and you'll find us. And finally, subscribe to us on our audio and video content providers, including YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and others. Do a search for us, like us, subscribe, give us a listen. All of that is very helpful and beneficial to us, of course, but also to you. Because if you subscribe and like the content on there, you'll get automatic updates every time we put something up new. And that's a great way to keep track of everything that we're doing. So make sure you do that. All right, biggest note from yesterday since our last show was Georgia Tech volleyball. The Yellow Jackets have advanced to the second round of the NCAA tournament with a 3-1 victory over Lipscomb on the opening round on April 14th. They were led by a career high 31 kills from sophomore outside hitter Julia Bergmann. And with that victory, Georgia Tech advanced to the second round, as said the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2004. Here is head coach of the team, Michelle Collier, on the victory over Lipscomb.
Yeah, I mean, just excited for our girls, excited for the program. I think it's Lipscomb is not an easy team. And there's a lot of nerves in matches like this, and I think that we really were able to keep our composure, work through some of the things that we were struggled at times to really just turn around, and we didn't have a great game two, and to be able to just turn around and win the next two games and finish it up playing really well. Just super proud of how we worked through that, and just we're staying here, so I can't complain.
And as I mentioned, that first round win over Lipscomb was the Yellow Jackets' first NCAA tournament win since it defeated UC Santa Barbara 3-0 in 2004. So that was a very long time coming for Georgia Tech. And here is Collier, who joined the program several years ago as the head coach. It was her first win with the Yellow Jacket program. And here is Collier discussing the victory and what it means for the program.
It's great. I mean, you know how hard those wins are, and I think that we played a very good program who has won a lot this year. Definitely didn't make it easy on ourselves, so didn't feel like we were our best selves at times, and we still being able to pull out a win like that, I think it means a lot. And it gives us an opportunity to keep living this experience and really getting after it and getting better as a program. So I'm super proud of what we're doing.
Now, I said the highlight offensively for Georgia Tech was Bergmann. The Brazilian's 31 kills were the most ever by a Yellow Jacket in an NCAA tournament match, and the most by a player in nearly 16 years. Talisa Kellogg had 35 kills against Virginia in 2005. And with that mark, Bergmann is also only the sixth player in Yellow Jackets history to record as many as 31 kills in a single match. Here is Bergmann on her big performance.
It's kind of a feeling that you can do whatever and it's gonna work out. So you can, I don't know, swing the ball with your left arm and it's gonna drop. Everything works, and I think you have to have confidence in those moments and know that you know how to do it. And I think that's the secret.
And watching the match, you saw her move around quite a bit on the floor. She's one of the best servers in the nation. She leads the ACC in aces per set. But you saw her play in the front line a lot as well during the match, so that because she was really the hot hand throughout the entire contest. So you saw in the rotations, she was playing more in the front line than normal. So here's Bergmann on her maybe playing in different places than she's normally used to during a contest based on her hitting effort.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you cannot block the entire net. And I think it definitely opens up like place for other hitters. And I mean, that's what we do with the middle every time. We try to hold one block on one spot. And I think today it really worked well. I can start everywhere. I love to serve. I love to be front row and start hitting all the balls from the beginning. But I think that was we needed a good start in that set, and I think that was like a master chess move. I don't know how you call it in English, but that really helped us in that set, definitely.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech hit 33% for the night, which is a season high, I believe, and a very high percentage in volleyball. Two other players had double doubles for the Yellow Jackets with the junior outside hitters, Mariana Brambilla and Michaela Dowd. So that was a very big effort from multiple players. Georgia Tech had 20 more digs than the Bisons and 14 blocks compared to only 7 for Lipscomb. Here is Collier on the depth of the team.
Very important. I think that these guys have throughout the season, and when they're stepping in, they're not stepping in at easy moments. They're stepping in times where we're trying to change something. We're really struggling with something. So it's not an easy role to play. But they've done a great job all year of really challenging our starters on that other side and getting better. And so I have complete trust in what they can do. And we don't hesitate to make those changes and to try to, just change the pace a little bit, throw in a different energy. We felt like their middles were really scoring well, so we wanted to get Bree in there and see if we could put up a little bigger block against them, and she executed, right away. But then even with that, we just couldn't really slow them down. So we decided to just go back to our starting lineup in game 3, the way that we've been playing all year, just to get ourselves back in rhythm and get going. And it worked, and in game 4, we usually don't start in it. We started in rotation 4 with Julia left front. Really felt like she was killing balls. And so I just wanted to kind of keep her going. We usually actually start her all the way back and right back most of the time with serving, and it was a change that I decided there in that last game that I think it really worked out. We started that match, that set well, had a little bit of a bumpy ride there in the middle. But I think that we were able to finish well. And so just excited for a great team win. Yeah, it's good.
Now, coming into the contest, Georgia Tech did come in as the favorite, but they had a very slow start. They dropped the first 3 points of the match in the first set, and Collier called a timeout immediately. Now, Georgia Tech was able to come back and win that first set 25-21, but they dropped the second set 25-16. And they had their 10-minute, I think it's 5 minutes now, actually, but they had their multiple minute break between the second and third sets, were able to go into the locker room, rebound, and they won the next two sets by scores of 25-21 and 25-19 to secure the victory. I asked Coach Collier directly about the slow start and the ultimate recovery for the team.
I think we were just having a really hard time stopping their middles. Their middles hit really high percentage against us, and it was a different rhythm of attacking than what we've been used to. So I think it threw our defense and our blocking off a little bit. We really couldn't get in the flow with the game. It just never felt like we were really in control of just the momentum, and the rhythm of the match. And that's definitely hard to keep working through that. But we just kept talking about the things that we needed to do. I think that eventually they started to make some errors. I think that physically we were better prepared as the match went on. We got better. And I think they got a little more tired. And we were able to play with our physicality and continue to just keep getting better, work through some of the things, and I think we had lots of ups and downs through the match, but I think that we were able to just stay composed, refocus. And then we had different players stepped up at some times. I felt like Michaela played a great match for us too. I think Erin did a good job. And then our libero kind of went on and off. Maddie, I think she finished it out playing well, and she was able to settle. And so Mari made some big plays there at the end of the game, made some good defensive plays. So I think it was a good team effort. I think Julia definitely, stood out as far as performance. I think that we can play a lot better than what we played today, but I also know that wasn't an easy, those matches are not easy, and that wasn't an easy team. On that other side, I think they did a good job defensively as well and put some pressure on us with their serve. And we just were able to work through those matches, and that's what good teams do. So I'm excited that we're staying here.
And with that victory, Georgia Tech will face the third ranked nationally and the third seed in the tournament, Minnesota, who had a bye in the first round. And that contest actually takes place tonight on April 15th. Here is head coach Collier previewing the Minnesota contest.
Yeah, I mean, they're number 3 in the country. They have a great coaching staff, crazy athletes. But these are the matches that we, want to be in and play. And this is the direction that our program wants to be going. So I think it's going to be a fun match for us. We really have nothing to lose and go out there, play a great volleyball team, and really work hard to challenge them and then see what happens. I think that we hear stories like that all the time in the NCAA tournament. So, it's always up for grabs, and you don't know until you step on that court and you get after. So I'm excited for my players to have a chance to play a great team like that. I think that competitors want to play the best of the best. And Minnesota is definitely one of the best in the country. And so, we're going to get a good rest here and get out there and give them our best shot.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech, as I said, they're going to face Minnesota tonight on April 15th. We'll have a recap of that contest on our next show. Now, Georgia Tech football is working through their spring practices. Their spring game is actually on the 23rd of April. But we were able to speak with Coach Collins, and one focus for the Yellow Jackets during this spring session has been limiting mistakes and limiting penalties. So here is head coach of Georgia Tech, Geoff Collins, on the team's efforts to work on limiting those miscues and mishappenings.
Yeah, so one of my favorite parts. So we track penalties every single day. We have ACC officials out to every single practice. Usually it's about 7 to 8. We've had upwards of 10 officials out to a practice. Saturday's scrimmage was the fewest amount of penalties we've had all spring. We make a huge emphasis in it. Every single day at the end of practice, I get a sheet with every single penalty that we had that day, the names, what the penalty was. I read them out in front of the entire team, have educational pieces along with it. There's really good dialogue each and every play. When there is an infraction, pre-snap, post-snap, or within the play, and just the awareness is really heightened. And I think we've gotten better.
And as said, their contest is going to be on April 23rd, next Friday night. So we'll be keeping track of Georgia Tech as they work through that. Now, a team that is having their spring game a little bit earlier, in fact, the game is tomorrow as we record this show on April 16th, is Georgia State football. The Panthers return all 22 starters, or 20 starters, depending how you look at it, from last year's team. And they're, as I said, they're wrapping up their spring preparations. And speaking of those preparations, here is head coach of the Panthers, Coach Elliott, Shawn Elliott, about the preparations for the spring game.
Well, good afternoon. And here we are in our last week of spring practice. I think our spring practice has been beneficial for all. We've got a lot of young guys, a lot of reps. We've seen a lot of good play out of them. And we're finally coming around to where we can wrap this thing up. We're going to do a little bit different this year. We're going to draft our teams and split them up, and we've got two sides going against one another, coaching staff and players. So we're looking for a good time on Friday evening at 6:30. I think it'll be a little unique because there's going to be a mixed match of offensive line, defensive line, wide receivers. Everybody's going to be kind of put in different spots. Some may even play out of position a little bit, but it's going to be fun, and we're going to enjoy it and hopefully have a great time Friday evening at 6:30.
Now, with the spring game, also it provides opportunity for younger players to really step up. And as I mentioned, they return at least 20 starters from their team last year. So a lot of those guys are proven and have shown that their skill level. And the spring game usually provides an opportunity for players who do not see the field too often to have an opportunity to show their skills. And you want to keep those veterans that are returning healthy as well. Here is Coach Elliott addressing the approach to health for this spring contest.
Yeah, we're going to be really careful about what we do with some guys that we have out there. I mean, like I said, some lines will be displaced, so you're not going to have an entire first team offensive line going out there. You're going to have a first left tackle, maybe with a third team right tackle and a third team center with the first team right guard. So, yeah, we're going to be smart about it, but I think we're going to control the environment. So there's not going to be a lot of formations. There's not going to be a lot of pressure packages. Everybody's going to kind of know where everyone's going to be, and we're just going to go out there and play.
And as I mentioned, during these spring practices, it allows reserves or players who have not seen much time on the field to train and also to show their abilities. I asked Coach Elliott directly about some standout position groups that have been interesting to him during the spring practice sessions.
I think our running backs have we've really established a lot of depth there. All these position groups have really done a good job. I mean, from our skill set in the back end and our defensive back position, from the safeties to our corners to our young offensive line. I think our two tight ends, Chris Bird, Amon Green, those two individuals right there in the tight end group has really come on strong. They've had to get a lot of reps this spring. Aubrey Payne has been out, and Roger Carter has been limited a little bit just because we can. And those two individuals have really had to step up and take the load on that position. So, like I said, I mentioned the running backs as well. Dawson Hill's done a marvelous job coming in there, Jan Williams and those guys. But we've really just had a really good spring in all positions. I mean, it's really been good. It's really been competitive, and we've enjoyed the heck out of being out there.
Yeah, and then lastly, I was able to ask Coach Elliott about spring practice itself. It's usually it's an important process for any football team, but it also is a time you've come off your fall season. You're still recovering from that. You're not in fall training camp yet. So people usually aren't the anticipation level is not too high for a spring game. But as Coach Elliott discusses here, this year is a little bit different.
This team is getting closer and closer every single day. I think Lou Corral and our strength staff did a great job with our guys getting them ready this offseason. We got enhanced or increased meeting times with them this offseason as well, weekly leadership meetings to where we can come together and bond. And, it's an exciting time. Really like the demeanor and the attitude and the attention to detail of this team. And we just got to continue to build on it for the last few practices and throughout the summer and preseason camp as well.
And as I mentioned, their spring contest will take place tomorrow on April 16th. We'll have a recap of, we may do a show before that game takes place. So I may not have a full recap of that, but after the weekend, we do our Monday show, which should come out April 19th. We'll have a recap of the spring game and some things that we saw and noticed from it. All right, let's transition to the original free kick and Atlanta United as they continue to prepare for their MLS season. We talked earlier about Atlanta advancing in the CONCACAF Champions League in the round of 16 with a 2-0 aggregate victory over Aluense. And they're going to face the Philadelphia Union in the quarterfinals of the Champions League next week, the round of 8. But before we get to that, they do have to open their MLS season. And they're going to be at Orlando City on this Saturday, April 17th. And one thing here's one, obviously the biggest thing is a new manager for the team with Gabriel Heinze, Argentinian, and in his first campaign with Atlanta United. And here is Anton Walks on Heinze and how the transition has been.
So far, I feel I've learned a lot just by the small details he's added. I keep saying it to everybody whenever I get asked this about how good he is. I think his attention to details and the small things being the priority first, I think it's what has helped us improve and, helped us grind at that performance. He's helped motivate the lads, which has been a vital part. And again, not only as a coach, but as a player, he had a ton of experience and he played under some of the best coaches as well. And to have that type of person mentoring you and giving you experiences from what he experienced while playing, I think that's been a very good and important thing for us as well in terms of our development.
Now, with the new manager in hindsight means a new system, and especially on the defensive end. And also, you're also seeing a change in the players from the original Atlanta United. And it's very interesting because when Atlanta United first started, we saw some veteran stalwarts like Leandro Gonzalez Perez, Michael Parkhurst, Jeff Larunowitz, some of those players, they've retired or moved on from the organization. And we've seen some younger guys be in the back line or in the wing in the back spots at the winger positions. And Anton Walks is one of those guys. And we were able to speak with Walks, or the media was able to speak with Walks about the defensive revamping. And starting off, let's hear from Walks about playing center back or playing in a more defensive position with Atlanta United.
Yeah, I feel so. I think there's been a big initiative on someone being the vocal point and the leader at the back, and I think that's something I feel I can add. I think we've got a great group, and again, I said this last year. There was times where we lacked a voice, where I felt it could have helped us through the tough spells that we had, and it's more than just one guy. It's more than just me being the vocal point. I feel at centre back, if I can do that, it makes the job a lot easier.
Now, on the right side of he plays, right back or left back. They on the same side defensively has been George Bello, who has a developmental talent as well for Atlanta United. We saw in those contests against Aluense I won't say some leakage, but we saw some Aluense take advantage of that side of the field where Bello was on and Walks. And here is Walks talking about working with Bello and developing that relationship as far as defending on the same side.
No, there's no such thing as letting faults go. That's stuff that we're not trained to do. But I think there was a few times it did happen where, Bello had a guy running in behind him and I could get there and I stopped it. A few of the other times it don't happen, but that just depends on the tactics they set out. Because if I've got a man in front of me, it's kind of hard to cover someone else, especially when we're going man for man across the back line. So it's all these little details, which I said we're trying to learn. And the more we work on it, the less you'll see of those type of things. So again, it's a work in progress. And when it works, we've done fantastic at it. So we can't fault anyone in the back line because we all, try the hardest. And stuck in for the whole game, especially being a man down. So, and not to like, take anything away from them, but their forwards are good forwards. They've got a good relationship, as you can tell by the way they move. So in a game, once or twice it will happen, and we just have to find a way to deal with it after.
Same thing with Miles Robinson as far as that defensive back line then and trying to work together with him. Here's Walks on Miles Robinson.
I think he's showing his quality he's always had. Back in 2017, obviously, we were a lot younger. We were like the babies in the team and we didn't have the experience. And I think with the games he's played, he's matured and, he's a great example of how applying yourself every day, when you're not in a team, can help you once you do get the opportunity to finally play.
Now, a major acquisition for Atlanta United, it was Santiago Sosa, who's going to play in that back line position, with the team as well. The Argentinian brings a lot of experience from River Plate, and we'll get to that part of his professional career first. But I asked Santiago about playing alongside fellow Argentinian Ezequiel Barco. They've played on the U21 or U20 team together for the Argentinian team. And here is Sosa on reuniting with his fellow countrymen.
Sí, bueno, como ya comenté en otra entrevista anterior, yo con Ezequiel compartí la selección argentina en la sub-20.
Yeah, as I've said before, I was able to be on the same team with him in the Argentine under-20 team.
Creo que es un jugador muy bueno, que dentro de la cancha uno se puede asociar con él.
He's a great player and he's someone who is easy to combine with on the field.
Y obviamente, al ser argentino, al igual que yo, la comunicación y el desarrollo dentro del campo creo que es mejor porque tenemos como que nos entendemos mejor, más.
And obviously, us both being Argentine, I think the adaptation and that development on the field is even easier.
And as I mentioned, Sosa comes from River Plate, one of the premier professional teams in South America, and what he's learned, what we learned from River Plate, and then comparing it to his early experiences with Atlanta United.
Sí, como bueno, todos ya saben, son dos técnicos muy, muy reconocidos y también se caracterizan por entrenar al máximo.
They're two coaches who are very well recognized and they're known for working to the maximum.
Considero que cada uno tiene su propio estilo. No está bueno compararlos, pero bueno, como en River estaba en una exigencia muy alta, creo que vino a un lugar donde también la exigencia es mayor, ¿no?
I think they both have their own different styles, so I don't want to compare them. But coming from somewhere like River, where the standard is very high.
And then finally, Sosa will talk with the media about areas of improvement, things that he has been working on in his early tenure with Atlanta United.
Sí, algo que me gustaría mejorar, que quizás yo tengo a veces la costumbre de ir a presionar hacia adelante y a veces pierdo un poco el orden.
One thing I'd like to work on is sometimes I have the habit of going to press and can lose the order a little bit.
Y otra cosa que a veces cuando en el partido yo veo a un compañero solo lejos, que está en condiciones no sé si en condiciones de darle un pase, pero quizás a veces me apresuro y debería tomarme un segundo de más o jugar a un compañero más seguro en vez de buscar el pase difícil, porque yo lo que tengo que hacer es darle seguridad al equipo.
And sometimes there's moments at the game where I see a teammate who might be open for a pass. And sometimes I might rush a little bit to play it. So I want to have more patience because the thing that I want to bring is to play simple and to bring security to the team.
As I mentioned, Atlanta United will open up their MLS season Saturday, April 17th at Orlando City. We'll be keeping track of everything going on there. All right, let's conclude the show with the Miscellaneous Department and things around the world of sports that kind of fits in different categories. Good for Carlos Rendon throwing the no-hitter for the Chicago White Sox last night. He missed a perfect game with a hit batter in the ninth inning. You could tell he was trying to throw a curveball, a wipeout, I guess a curve or slider, and it just went down too far and hit the Cleveland batter on the foot. He was I think he was kind of joking with the Cleveland batter about how he could have moved his foot out of the way. I don't think so. Now, it was very interesting. You saw in the ninth inning, one of the Cleveland batters had a hit the ball. It was a tough grounder, and he slid into first base, trying to break up the no hitter. That's some would consider that bush league, but that's kind of the way the sports work. But Rendon, I remember him when he was a pitcher at North Carolina State and I think he was a top 5 draft pick in Major League Baseball about 7, 8 years ago, has dealt with numerous injuries, trying to find his way onto the field. But that was a big moment for him to throw the no hitter for a White Sox team that has postseason aspirations. So that was a good moment for him. I mentioned in the tease or the intro of our show, we saw a landmark or a record happen in Major League Baseball, which I don't think will happen ever again. And that's Yadier Molina. He caught his 2000th game as a major leaguer, all with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's the first man to catch 2,000 games with one team. We've seen other guys like Carlton Fisk, Yogi Berra, and others reach 2,000 games caught by Boone, but he's the first man to do it all with one team. Jason Kendall's another guy that's on the list, and I think that you'll maybe see another guy get 2,000 caught games. But in this era of free agency and player movement, I think it's going to be very difficult to see one man do that all with one team. And I was listening to something on one of the stations, and they're asking if he's a Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, multiple world champion. He only may have no. I think he has at least one, but multiple time Gold Glover, maybe the best defensive catcher in his era, and solid hitter, command of the plate. Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer without question. But that's a really major accomplishment for Molina to reach 2,000 games in general as a catcher, but to do it all with one team, as I said, I don't see that maybe ever happening again, with the team. And because also, by the time you get to that mark of 2,000 games, I don't think, no, I think I may have mentioned Johnny Bench. He did not reach 2,000 games caught. But Bench is a good example. By the time you reach the mark of getting maybe to 1,800 or 1,900, you're probably playing another position to preserve your legs if you're still productive offensively. And we saw that with Bench. He played the outfield, he played the corner infield positions, and all of that stuff towards the end of his career. But I said for Molina, that's a major accomplishment. So respect to him. We saw Jadeveon Clowney, the defensive end, signed with the Cleveland Browns as a free agent. Look, does it make them Super Bowl contenders? And that's been a debate on national shows. I already believe that they were Super Bowl contenders before he signed with the team. You look at their roster, they may have a top 5 roster in all of the NFL when you look at their lines, their skill positions. They are stacked and loaded, especially on the offensive end. When you have 2 running backs like Chubb and Hunt, you have Landry and a receiver in Austin Hooper, and they have several other good tight ends. They are, and then if you go to the defensive side, Myles Garrett, obviously a all-pro caliber defensive lineman already on the team, and you look at their back line, including Denzel Ward, they have a really, really good team. We saw that last year. Made the postseason for the first time in 20-plus years, won at Pittsburgh in the first round of the playoffs. So we've seen that they've made that elevation. Now, it all comes down to Baker Mayfield and his evolution as a quarterback, because I mentioned all those signature skill players on the team, it comes down to the quarterback. And if Mayfield, who had a solid year last year, can continue to build on his skills, they can make a Super Bowl run. But with Clowney, he adds to it if he can stay on the field and be productive. We've seen him since he was at South Carolina, and I remember I wasn't living in South Carolina at the time, but I followed South Carolina because we're in SEC country here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we saw the highlights of him in high school, the top recruit in the nation, signed with South Carolina. We saw some ups and downs even at South Carolina when he was playing. And that junior year, you can tell he was really not wanting to hurt himself too much because he knew he was going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. We also had a highlight against Michigan in the bowl game where he hit the running back, knocked his helmet off, recovered the fumble, all in one motion, all in one play. Tremendous moment for him, an individual play. But we haven't seen that in the NFL when he was with Houston and then when he was with Tennessee last year. He's dealt with injuries to his core. He was with Seattle as well. He's bounced around quite a bit. He's dealt with injuries to his core, his knees. He had the microfracture surgery. He just has not been able to. He had 1 year where he had 9 sacks, but outside of that, he has just underachieved, and injuries have played a part in that. But when you're the number 1 overall pick, like he was, expectations are you got to be more than a run stopper because that's you hear as well. That he's a top 20, 25 defensive lineman. He's a good run stopper. That's fine, and that's a part of the game. But you want him to get to the quarterback, get sacks, cause pressure. You want him to be in that Garrett category, the Aaron Donald category, Khalil Mack, guys, Von Miller when he's healthy and right. Those guys who get in the backfield, cause pressures, cause sacks, and wreak havoc on the offense that they're facing. He doesn't do that. Now I said if he goes with Cleveland, I think it's about $10 million deal. Probably base is around half, $5-6 million. Incentives will get him up to 10. So it's not like you're not paying him $25 million like the past, like you want to be paid, and you got to be a superstar. But if he can play 14, 15 games, be a rotational guy, be productive, give them maybe 6-7 sacks, and do that run stopping, I mean, he's an addition to the team. So that's nothing to just ignore. But if you think he's going to go there and reach those first overall pick expectations at 28 years old, with those injuries that he's dealt with, I don't really see that happening. But he was available, and that's not too much money, all things considered. Justin Fields had his second pro day at Ohio State. I think what Fields is running into and I think all the guys deal with it. I don't think it's racial. I think that's just some fire starters on the media, trying to go that route. Ooh, he's a black quarterback. He's getting extra scrutiny. No, I think what happens is very rarely do you have a Trevor Lawrence situation where he is ordained as the number 1 overall pick. And if you know Lawrence's background, and we're based in Atlanta, but we live in North Atlanta, we're about 15 miles away from where Trevor Lawrence grew up and about 5 from where Justin Fields lived in Kennesaw. It's really unique having 2 guys from the Cobb/Bartow County area being this highly regarded in the NFL, at least as far as draft picks. But Lawrence, if you know his story, I mean, the guy he went to Clemson. There's no off-field issues. He married his literal high school girlfriend this past weekend. You don't hear any stories of bad about him. He's been groomed to be this number 1 pick. That's very rare that you have that type of situation. And it's kind of similar when Andrew Luck was coming out. Just no red flags, no issues. That's perfect. But for all the other guys, and in this draft, Zach Wilson to Fields to Mac Jones or any other prospect, you're going to be highly scrutinized. These are billionaires making selections on their their billionaire business, their NFL team, and they're about to pay this guy, if they're selecting in the top 5 or 10, maybe in the future up to hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's where you're looking at the salaries of the quarterbacks, especially in that second deal and all that stuff. You want intense scrutiny. For Fields, why did he transfer from Georgia to Ohio State? What is his work ethic like? What's his attitude? How does he get along with others? All this other stuff. Same thing with Zach Wilson. Same thing with Mac Jones. If I'm an owner, and that's where people lack perspective when it comes to these issues, they look at it as like, oh, He's a black quarterback. They hate black quarterbacks. He's under intense extra scrutiny. Look, if you're a manager of a department store or a restaurant, no disrespect to those businesses, but I'm trying to scale it down a little bit as far as comparing. Not many of us are ever going to be the owner of $1 billion business like an NFL owner. So, and myself included, I highly doubt I'll reach that mark. But we can all relate. We've all been managers, whether it's interns at our job or if you're, say, like a store or a business, you have workers and all that other stuff. You're gonna do research on them. You're gonna check your references. You may do a drug test. You may do a character evaluation. You may even do if this is extreme, but maybe a credit check. But the point is, you're gonna do your due diligence when you're hiring someone, and whether it's someone again minimum wage or whether it's someone that's going to sign a multi-million-dollar contract. So I don't want to hear, if I'm the owner and the general manager's like, well, you know what, I feel bad doing background checks and researching, for this player because I don't want to be, too intrusive, or I don't want to be, too mean. Bull crap. You need to find out everything within, and there are limits to everything, But if I'm like an owner of the 49ers or the Jets or whatever team is in that top four, Falcons, top 4 or 5 range, I want you speaking to the janitor, his elementary school teacher, his college teammates, his college coaches. I want the full background on all of these guys. And with that, you're going to have some scrutiny and some questions about what's going on. So Fields is not being treated unfairly, with that. And we'll move on to the Nets and Sixers game to conclude our show. What you're also seeing is a lot of these teams, they intentionally put bad information out there. So the player that they like can maybe drop down to them. As I said, we're going to see Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. That's signed and delivered. But we'll say with Fields, and I'm not saying that they're doing this, but if you're New England or the Broncos or maybe the Lions, a team that's because the Fields, if all things considered, should be picked number 3 or 4 in that range. He should be a top 5 guy. But if you're in the top 10 and you can't make it or make a trade up to there and you want Fields, you will leak out that information. Happens all the time. The information gets leaked out by teams to other teams or to their media contacts. And they're saying, well, I heard X, Y, and Z about him when he was in college. Or I don't know about his skill set in doing this, that, and whatever. You're saying all that, but then deep down, you really love the guy. And you're just hoping that he falls down the draft board to you. So that's when I see all of these. And Fields is not the only one. There are other guys Fields has been highlighted one in this year's draft. But you see it all the time with a lot of these people, a lot of these scouts and general managers. They leak that information out so that they can hopefully get their guy maybe they feel that they are in a position not to get him. So they do that stuff to try to move up the draft board. As I said, it happens all the time. So when it happens, don't be surprised or shocked, what's going on with that. So I don't think Fields is under any more intense scrutiny than any other guy that's been in his position. If you're a top 5 quarterback prospect, you're going to get that intense scrutiny, and even more than maybe an offensive lineman or a linebacker, because now they want good characters in those positions too. But it's the quarterback. This guy is the face of your franchise. Every time something goes good or bad, who do you go to? The quarterback, as far as players go. Teams winning and doing well, you want to talk about to the quarterback. Teams losing, not doing well on a bad streak, you go to the quarterback. And he has to be the CEO publicly and really in your locker room in a lot of ways for how things go. And if I'm hiring a guy for that type of position, I'm going to be intense and scrutinized, or I'm being very intensive in scrutinizing in my ways of how I'm hiring him. So Fields, and it's not personal, it's business. And I think as people need to take a deeper perspective on it and take a step back and realize what's really going on. And then finally, I wanted to watch some of the Sixers and Nets game, and this were the NBA, and I don't know how to fix it because it's just a quandary that you're in right now. But I want to watch the contest, and I'm excited. You got two of the top teams in the East, both of them championship contenders, and I look at the lineup. No Kevin Durant, no James Harden, no interest. Now I know Kyrie Irving played, and he's 50-50 half the time of him playing. And to be fair to the Nets, they were in that game to the very end. So respect to them with a shorthanded lineup. Now Kyrie did play a good amount of time and had 30 plus points. He didn't play really the second part of the fourth quarter for some reason. So the game was more competitive than it really should have been. But man, you just see so many of these guys take time off. The Clippers, they played Detroit last night, and no Kawhi Leonard, no Paul George, no Patrick Beverly. I mean, come on, those are two of their three best players without question, and two of their marquee guys. And the Clippers still won the game. I mean, the Pistons are not a very good team. But man, these guys taking rest, and I'm not saying you got to be like the 70s and 80s and play 82 games every year. You like that. But man, it's very disappointing when you're turning on a game and you want to see some marquee guys and they don't even play. And it's not even that they play maybe half of a game or maybe they're on a minutes restriction or anything like that. They just don't even suit up to play the game. And you see them and it's even worse because you'll see them on the sideline cheering on their teammates, being animated, being excited. It's like, well, why couldn't you do that and still play 20 minutes in the game? And for the players, I understand they're trying to rest their bodies and all of this stuff. The general managers, they're not going to do anything or say anything because they don't want to piss off their players. I get all of that, but man, this whole rest thing is very disappointing when you see what's going on there. And wow, I'm literally watching the scroll. LaMarcus Aldridge, who just signed with the Nets earlier this season, is retiring from the NBA in the middle of the season. Wow, interesting. Anyway, we'll have more on that maybe on our next show. But we conclude today's broadcast. And thanks for listening. As always, go to thesportsinquirer.net for all news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook social media platforms under Sports Inquirer to check that out. And then finally, go to our YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes, or wherever you get your audio and video content. Just do a search for us, and you'll find everything that we have going on. Until next time, good fight, good night, be safe.